what's going on, folks? So today we're doing something a little bit different. What I am doing here is I'm collecting a lot of questions that come in through my stories, DMs on Instagram, and both on Twitter and Facebook. And I'm answering them here in video format so that I can go further into detail for you guys rather than just kind of posting something real quick in my stories, because I want to provide as much value as possible. So let's get into it. So, first question here comes from 23XL, and it says, do you watch your sugar intake? And the answer is no. All right, next question. Just kidding. Of course I watch my sugar intake to some degree, but not as much as a lot of people would like to think. And I think a lot of people really fear sugar, like they demonize it as like the enemy. Like sugar makes you fat. And here's the deal. Athletes don't fear sugar. Normal people do, and maybe with good reason, if they don't perform what's called glycolytic or glycolic activity. Meaning, we're doing things like resistance training, training like athletes, high intensity exercise, right? That's where we're burning up blood sugars and glycogen that's stored in the muscle cell in the liver. That needs to be replenished. And if you're trying to perform, especially for performance sake, you know, like you're trying to run really fast, or you're trying to hit PRs, or you're trying to do something in a manner of time or reps, you want to replenish that really quick while you're training, or at least immediately after. And that's where sugar can come into play. Now, sugar, straight up sugar, like table sugar, gets demonized, but then people will take supplements like Carbolin or drink Gatorade. It's the same thing. It has the same effect in the body. So I personally I consume intentionally about 35, sometimes up to 50 grams of sugar, either somewhat before, during, or immediately after. I usually do intra-workout sugar with some fast-acting protein to keep me going, right? So I don't kind of crap out in fatigue. There is an anabolic effect from insulin, especially for muscle growth. So insulin is not the boogeyman. People fear it. Now, when people fear sugar for the purpose of maybe they're pre-diabetic or have diabetes, then yes, right? But the fact of the matter is, most people aren't. Right? You don't have to have this fear of sugar. Now, if you're eating donuts and you're just eating candy and you're going, hey, Ethan said don't fear sugar, then you got a problem, right? You're taking this information incorrectly. But I'll say this, if you perform resistance training, you have the desire to get stronger, perform quicker, better, grow muscle, you cannot fear sugar, right? And I'm not saying go eat hundreds of grams of sugar, but you need to use some of it on occasion to perform, recover, right? So I'll do the intro workout sugar, and then I'll have some tablespoons of sugar in my tea. I do an 8 o'clock tea time every night, and I'll do 2 tablespoons of tea in 2 cups. So 1 tablespoon in a cup and 1 tablespoon in a cup. Outside of that, the rest of my sugar usually comes from fruit or honey, things like that. But processed sugar, I don't do very much. Saying that, I did have some ice cream last night, and I don't feel bad about it because I did a heavy leg day. All right, next question comes from, I'm going to say this wrong, Cyezerun, Cyezerone. And he is asking advice in calculating, and he puts in quotes, maintenance calories. I don't know why that's in quotes. There certainly is a maintenance calorie point for each and every individual, and that is simply just around the fact that you won't gain or lose body fat. You are in a homeostatic point, which is a good place to be. And I'll touch on that here in a moment. So plenty of ways to calculate maintenance calories. You can use the Harris-Benedict formula, a really complex formula. You can use other formulas that like apps like MyFitnessPal and whatnot will use. They're all pretty much somewhat the same based on your height, body weight, and activity level. There's going to be some variables, maybe 50 to 100 calories. There's no reason to freak out about that, because really at the end of the day, it's not a huge difference, right? Not a huge deal. What I teach a lot of people is, first and foremost, when you're at what's considered a healthy body weight, like you're not obese, to calculate maintenance by going body weight times 14 to 15, right? So your current body weight times 14 or 15 should be your rough maintenance. And I'll say, that's kind of dependent on your activity level. And if we go through this is called the multiplier system, by the way. If we say, hey, you want to lose some fat, let's go body weight times 12 to 14. If you're at the higher activity level, like you train a lot, you move a lot, you walk a lot, you should go to the 14, right? If you're not, if you're reasonably sedentary, maybe on the 12, right? On the lower end. That being said, if you're at the high activity level and you go body weight times 14 for fat loss for say 2 weeks, then it might not be a bad idea to go to body weight times 13 for 2 weeks and then body weight times 12, right? So that you're not heading into a process called metabolic adaptation, right? Where we kind of somewhat adapt. That being said, maintenance calories, roughly body weight times 15. You can't really go wrong with that. On that note of homeostasis, basically maintenance or set point, you have to go to a maintenance point, a homeostatic point in between your bouts of training, like getting up to peak levels of strength or performance, drop off, deload, go to maintenance calories, and just be normal for a minute. Or at the end of a fat loss cycle, say you do a 10 to 12 week cut, right? And you're just periodically removing your calories, and you get into that zone where you just feel terrible. Maybe your libido craps out, you're getting fatigue and brain fog, your workouts suck. You're gonna have to reverse diet back to maintenance, right? In general guidelines, we're gonna look at, let's say you do a 10-week cut, you wanna reverse diet back to maintenance and be at that maintenance, that homeostatic point for about 2/3 of the time that your cut was. So if you're cutting for 10 weeks, you might wanna be at maintenance for 6 weeks. And psychologically, maintenance for people is really difficult because they're not necessarily working towards anything, like not changing their body, really, anything like that. You should work on other things and focus on other things, like your habits around nutrition and just sticking to it, because most people fuck up their maintenance. You can get stronger, you can absolutely get stronger at maintenance calories, so you should work on strength and movement, fine tune other things. Fact of the matter is, you can't always bulk, you can't always cut, right? You can't lose fat forever. You're gonna atrophy and look and feel like shit. So you have to go to maintenance, right? So my answer to this typically is body weight times roughly 15. All right, next question. What is the best core exercise? I always love answering these questions. It's kind of like asking, how long is a piece of string? There's some really good core exercises that will be good for most people, but for some people they might not be as effective as some basics, right? What's good for me might not be good for you. I'll say this, you can't really go wrong with a plank. And I'm gonna show you here in a second the effectiveness of a plank, because most people are kind of half-assing them. And I'm gonna correct that here for you in a moment. But let's say that hanging leg raises are a very difficult core exercise for you. Well, that's the best core exercise for you, the one that sucks, right? If you stick to the ones that are easy, you're not gonna progress very much, right? If you've been doing the plank and you're not seeing any progress here, start to implement what I'm about to show you. All right, so let's fix that plank, because I think it probably is one of the better core exercises. It's just the fact that people do it incorrectly, right? So just holding this isn't a plank. I hate to tell you, but all you're doing is putting a bunch of load on your shoulders and your elbows and kind of engaging the core and the hips. The plank is a core exercise, but you should be engaging your glutes, your quads, your hamstrings, your lats, everything, okay? So how do we do that? Well, a lot of people, they have what's called an anterior pelvic tilt, right? So they got this curve in their back. This opens up the rib cage. When you open up that rib cage, it takes away from core stability. So a lot of people do this in the squat, for example. When you take that away, you get the butt wink, the pelvic tilt in the bottom of the squat. There's not enough core stability there, right? And the same thing applies here to the plank, okay? So 2 things we're gonna do is get into that plank position and then pretend like you're gonna show yourself your own belt buckle if you're wearing one, right? Boom, right? Squeeze the glutes. Now, I'm gonna take my elbows and draw them back in their own skin of the forearms. It sounds gross. Bow, right? Small difference. Boom. This engages the lats. Last thing I'm gonna do, big deep breath into my nose and hold it in my belly. That's a real plank. Next question. What is the best diet to help in production of HGH, human growth hormone? I have a rare disease that does not allow my body to produce HGH, and it affects my connective tissues to where they do not rebuild and recover. Okay, first of all, I do not know of any diet that aids in the production of human growth hormone. When we're talking about eating and living a certain way for hormone optimization, we're really just talking about being healthy, right? And you say that to people and they're like, well, I think I'm healthy, right? Well, you know, this pertains to things like sleep. It pertains to the food types. You want to eat healthy foods. When we're talking about hormones, we're really talking about healthy fats and healthy proteins. And then, of course, you know, your vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients coming from plants. But if you have a rare condition, you know, I don't know that a diet is going to fix that. But when it comes to connective tissues, however, you know, things like collagen, bone broth, like bone marrow, can really help. So supplementing with that and eating those foods, gelatinous kind of, you know, animal products really help. Fish oil, that can really help. And then there's certain ways you can train that, you know, might not be too taxing. You might not really grow and get incredibly strong, but if you take, for example, a single arm chest press and don't try and recruit the pec and the shoulder so much, but just bring it in and then try and recruit the connective tissues in your elbow. If you do this really lightly, you'll see that a lot of like advanced powerlifters and strength athletes, they do these kind of lighter days where they're just training like connective tissues in the joints, right? So they're not trying to get jacked and like build muscle and like a whole lot of strength. They're actually just intentionally changing that angle from this to say this to just get that elbow tissue, all those connective tissues in the elbow to become a little bit more resilient. And then the last thing is hydration, right? Connective tissues are pretty dry compared to our muscles, and just in general, they don't recover as quick as your muscles do. Your muscles kind of recover in a day or so and you're good. Connective tissues, adrenals, joints, central nervous system, they all take a little bit longer. This is why I'm so adamant about my clients taking a deload, a light week every 6 to 8 weeks or so after, you know, kind of accumulating up to a peak phase. And certainly the ones that are a little bit more advanced, getting ready for, say, powerlifting meets or whatever, they're doing some of this connective tissue work. All right, next question comes from Pierre Crusthammer. That's a cool name. The Crusthammer part is anyway. I'm not a fan of French names. Pierre asks, fasting, is it too hard or too dangerous? Well, if not eating for 16 to 18 hours is hard for you, then yeah, it's going to be difficult. For some people, it's really easy. Some people just kind of do that by accident. I personally, not a fan. Occasionally I'll fast a little bit on non-training days just to kind of clear out the gut, because I eat a lot. I eat like 4,500, 5,000 calories a day currently. And like for example, today, my last meal yesterday was about 10 o'clock at night, and I didn't eat until about noon today. And that wasn't really, I want to fast for like any kind of other benefit than just kind of allowing the digestive tract to take a break. So it's not dangerous. It gets dangerous when people are trying to do these like 7-day, 14-day fasts. You know, really anything more than like a day or two isn't necessary. And even then, you can get all of the health benefits, for example, cellular autophagy, from a really low calorie diet. Like your body doesn't know, hey, I didn't eat anything versus I just ate, you know, 1,000 calories as a grown man type of deal, intentionally. So fasting, here's the thing. I'm going to sound like I'm against it, and I absolutely am not. It's a tool. You can use it for fat loss. However, if you're training, it is not very, very good. It's not conducive for training. You go in and you want to get strong. You want to build some muscle. You want to perform a certain way. That in a fasted state is not going to work very well long term. And yes, you can operate that way. And a lot of people argue this. Well, I train fasted all the time and I'm fine. That's great. That's awesome. You know, I can train fasted and be fine, but I want to be more than fine, right? I want to move forward. I want to be fueled for performance and recovery, right? And I'll tell you, there are no strength athletes or even like big fucking bodybuilders out there that are like, you got to fast, bro. You got to train fasted, right? Maybe they do fasted cardio, which is a whole other topic. But fasting is not dangerous if you do it correctly. It's a short period of time. Humans evolved by just not eating for long periods of time, so it's perfectly okay. Some people might feel their blood sugar crash and they'll get all shaky, maybe even lightheaded. Maybe it's not for you, and you don't even need to do it, right? People don't need to fast. But It's not dangerous, and it's not too hard. I mean, if you just think about it, you essentially skip breakfast and you fasted, right? You didn't break the fast until lunch or the afternoon, and you're good. However, my standpoint, always, if you want to train, build muscle, get stronger, fasting is not for you. All right, next question comes from Twitter by a gentleman that goes by the name of Sean, and he asks, I need to lose 50 pounds. How do I do that as fast as possible? You're asking the wrong guy for this, and I get it, right? I was there, I used to weigh close to 300 pounds, and I wanted it off fast, right? It's totally understandable. I totally get where people are coming from when they ask this, and by the way, I get asked this kind of question all the time. Hey, I need to lose 30 pounds. How do I do it as fast as possible? Well, I always return the question, are you cutting for like an event? Do you have to weigh a certain amount of weight in like a month? Like, what do you expect to happen here, right? Obviously, you've gained 50 pounds over the course of, 10 years. You know it's not gonna come off quickly, right? You could maybe not eat, not drink water, sit in a sauna, chop your fucking leg off, take a massive shit and lose weight. But that's not the way to do it, right? What I teach is a sustainable fashion to weight loss and keeping it off, right? And just this whole lifestyle and mindset this requires as well. My whole objective with each and every client is to eventually have them walk away with the skills, confidence, and knowledge to do this on their own forever, right? And that is how you're gonna do it. Flipping the narrative, okay? You're gonna lose the weight through education, because education drives compliance, right? If you know why and how you're doing things, you're more likely to adhere to it, right? You need to become aware of your dietary habits, what you're doing that's not allowing you to lose any weight currently, right? Awareness comes first. If you're not aware of what's going on that led you to gain 50 pounds or is keeping you at that weight, if you're not aware of that, you're not going to be able to change it. So awareness comes first. Outside of that, take a look at your lifestyle, take a look at your food types, take a look at how much food, most importantly, you're eating, right? Are you eating an extra 1,000 calories a day that you shouldn't be eating with a sedentary lifestyle? Well, no fucking wonder, right? I'd be willing to bet that if most people that have a lot of weight to lose, fuck it, I'm not gonna say I'd be willing to bet. I'm saying this is a fact. If most people that have a lot of weight to lose just drank a little bit more water, slept a little better, went for walks, prioritized protein and vegetables over processed foods, they would lose a ton of weight relatively quickly. Now, losing weight is one thing, right? But going from, say, my body fat currently to getting like photo shoot shredded, that's a whole different thing, right? So be realistic with the goals that you set, right? A lot of people, they think, hey, I'm gonna do this fitness thing and I'll just get abs and everything will be cool, right? Really, this takes a lot longer and it's not gonna work that way. And if it did, everyone would be walking around shredded, right? So please, no more how quickly can I lose weight type of question, unless you're an athlete getting ready to fight an MMA fight, right? You have to weigh a certain weight. Well, cool, we can predict that, but it's not fat loss most of the time, it's water loss. You look like shit, you feel like shit, and you'll probably even perform like shit, right? So if you've got 50 pounds to lose, just go walk, just eat better, and lift weights a few times a week, and you'll be good for a while, right? Eventually you'll hit a plateau, and that doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. It's completely normal. You have to view this process, right? A lot of people say, hey, I'm not doing so good. I didn't lose any weight the last week or two. And they're beating themselves up over it. They're catastrophizing that scenario. Well, I always kind of shine light on the fact that, well, let's take a look at the last 3 to 6 months. Are you in a better place than you were then? Well, absolutely. Yeah, I've lost like 20 pounds. Dude, that's fucking awesome. So the trends are good, right? But you're worried about this one little myopic space and time versus essentially the universe, right? It's all in here, man. So just be careful about the way that you view yourself in the process, and think about the things that have led you to gaining weight and what you're doing currently that's not allowing you to do that. If you just decide, well, I heard that Steven lost 30 pounds pretty quickly doing keto, well, that's cool. You could go try and do that. And maybe that's a good thing for you, right? Who knows? But I guarantee you, you're not going to get as aesthetic as you want to be. You're going to atrophy, you're going to lose water weight. Most of the weight that's lost with a keto diet is water weight. And people argue, oh, it burns fat. Well, that doesn't mean that it burns body fat. You oxidize and utilize lipids more in your bloodstream. So that's the process of ketosis. So anyhow, don't look for a fad diet because it's not sustainable. If you can't do it forever, then it's not for you. All right, last two questions. This one comes from Lindsay Lambchop Goodrich. What inspired the move to Texas from Portland? Well, quite a few things. One thing would be, I have always lived in northern climates. I grew up in Oregon, Scotland, and Czech Republic. And Czech Republic, maybe not as high north as Scotland or Oregon, but the winters are brutal. So each and every year, especially as an adult, I started noticing that actual seasonal depression just got worse and worse, to the point it just caused me a lot of fatigue, just a kind of a poor mental state, not a whole lot of drive. And every time I would go somewhere in the winter for sun, I would just feel great. And I remember even when I lived in Prague in Czech Republic, I would go to Barcelona every January and walk around in a t-shirt and shorts, and I was just happy. It was awesome. So then I just started thinking like, well, what am I doing here? Why don't I just live somewhere that's sunny? So the sun and the weather, I absolutely love the heat. I feel great in it. I can tell my testosterone goes higher. I'm just happy and more productive and energetic. The other thing is I bought my first house here, and the house, the size, this house was built in 2012, and the size of the property and the location, literally, no joke, would be about 4 times more expensive in Oregon or the Northwest. So there was that. And then also, I am not a very political person, but Portland is a madhouse, especially currently, for people with these political ideologies. And the crazy thing is that on a fundamental level, I agree with what most people are talking about. I despise true racism, right? Unfortunately, it always has and always will exist, right? But I don't feel like dedicating my whole life to fighting that fight. I certainly don't feel like seeking it all the time. I did that in my late teens and early 20s, and I actually fought real Nazis. Not these people that just have different opinions, but Nazi skinheads that wore swastikas and stabbed people. My friends tried to murder me on the streets and sent me to hospitals with concussions and even caused psychological issues. And that's not what's happening. That's not what these people are fighting. These people are just fighting people with different opinions. So there's that, and then just the general consensus around self-bettering and masculinity and all that kind of stuff in Portland is really, really terrible and poor. I've been told that my posture is threatening, and like me, lifting weights is macho bullshit, and like I think I'm better than everyone. And it's really, no, I'm just kind of better than my previous self. I don't really give a shit about you or how you feel. And then they take that with an emotional response, and that's really none of my fucking business. So I left all that because I could go to the store and just get the stink eye from some weak, overweight, pale person that obviously doesn't take care of themselves. And that's none of my business. I don't judge them for it, but they're judging me for taking care of myself. It's called fit shaming. All right, last question is kind of a joke. It comes from my buddy Bronson Lee Norton. Guys, if you don't follow him, go follow him. He's awesome. He's got a really cool podcast, and he talks about really cool stuff. So the photo in my stories with the questions kind of tab in there, I think I just looked really beefy, and it looked like I had no neck. I do have a neck, by the way. You can see it. So he asks, where's your neck? And do you have a program for this? Thanks in advance. Yes, I do have a neck. And no, I don't have a program for it. But on that topic, I will say most people are completely neglecting their neck training, and that is simply a weak link in the body, right? There are a few weak links in the body that most people neglect, okay? The neck is certainly one of them. That's not something you want to be weak. That thing breaks and you're fucked, okay? Another thing, grip and forearm strength, right? Everyone wants to train their back, their legs, and their chest, and their arms, and their abs, and that's cool, right? Those things are great. They're the big prime movers. But if your neck's weak, you're looking at injuries. It might even look weird on like a muscular body and a skinny neck. So train your traps, train your neck, extensions, rotations, flexion. You don't need a whole lot of weight. In fact, please don't use a lot of weight doing those. You can really mess yourself up. They're long, thin muscles, right? They're small. They're long, but they're thin and small. You don't need a lot of weight doing that. In fact, zero weight to begin with is actually great. Grip strength is a weak link. A lot of people, might be able to squat and bench a whole lot, but they can't hold on, they can't walk with something and just holding on to it for a while, or they lose their grip strength when they're deadlifting. And then the other one, people don't think about it and they don't want to train it because it's not the cool, sexy stuff you can put on Instagram. It's not that fun. Foot and ankle stability. Stability is the very first component of strength. Now, I see a lot of people deadlifting, squatting, doing even overhead presses with these soft, squishy running shoes. That's a terrible idea. Reason being is that it doesn't allow your feet to distribute the load and find balance and stability like they should, right? It's constantly trying to find this, like, where do I balance, right? Where do I stand in this soft, squishy environment? So foot and ankle stability are also a weak link. So strengthen your feet, strengthen your ankles, your grip, and strengthen your neck, right? So I'll do extensions, I'll lay face down on the bench. I'll just show you a video. So what I'll do is I'll get my head and just let it fall back off of the bench all the way back, and then just come up, right? 15 to 20 times nice and slow, right? It's not head banging. I used to do that for a living, and it sucked. A lot of people, they worry about doing these things in the gym because they look silly. Good thing is that you can do this anywhere, right? And also, who gives a shit what you look like? If you know what you're doing, then fuck everyone else, okay? The other one is extension, so just let it dangle, come up, boom, 15 to 20 of those. A lot of times I'll complete a set of 15 or 20 and then just hold statically, right? Isometric hold, 15, 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds, right? You don't need a whole lot of sets for these. 2, 3 sets a week, perfectly fine. You don't want to overtrain your neck. And then, of course, talking about being self-conscious in the gym, just wait till you see this one. So I've got a light band. It's not very thick, right? It's about 1 inch thick, anchored to the squat rack. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this around my forehead like a headband and march out and not push too far back, but not allow it to pull me back completely. And I'm just going to turn my head gently and rotate. This looks fucking stupid, right? So maybe this is one you do at home, right? You don't need to go do neck day at the gym, right? Nobody wants to do this in public, but it's a good one. And then I'll do the same maybe around the back, right? This one I like to hold here just because it slides around, just because the shape of my skull, because I have a very nice skull, right? And turn there, 15, 20 of those. Other thing is that really just to begin with, you don't need to do a whole lot. You can do simple things like back down, push down, right? You can try and push back, right? You can even, turn, right? So you're getting these isometric holds. Really important stuff, right? Especially if you're doing heavy lifts and your neck is winky, you could break a vertebra in your neck just by deadlifting, right? It's pretty rare, but if this is a weak link, no good. Strengthen your neck.